Hey everyone, it's Terence Branley from the Grow IT podcast and Grow IT Partners, where we help IT firms build a client acquisition system. I can't even think. I have my coffee this morning, and I haven't think build a client acquisition system so they don't have to rely on networking, referrals, and word of mouth. And I think I'm just in awe here because I do. James Watson is the LinkedIn king, and I can tell you guys that you guys are going to get a ton of value from this. The two parts this we're going to talk about is leads and sales, and leads and sales is the blueprint to get you to 70 million. And between James and he'll show you some unbelievable stuff to get that demand gen going. And then Joe's going to be our sales expert, which good friend of mine. But I want to welcome both of you guys and just let's get this thing kicked off.
Great to be here, Terry. Do you prefer Terry or Terence?
You know what? My mom calls me Terry. I'll answer to anything.
Okay.
Joe calls me Terry too. I take that back.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Well, good. Why don't you guys just give us a quick intro for yourselves, and then we'll kind of dive into some questions and start getting to the meat of it.
Okay, Joe, you want to toss a coin, right? Who wants to go first?
Go on. I'll let you go first, James.
All right. So we'll do age before beauty, right? So, all right. So I'm James Watson. I've been doing digital marketing since 2007. So kind of dog years. That makes me very, very old indeed. I've had a lot of experience building multiple different online businesses, and I've coached thousands of people personally and in groups how to build a variety of different online businesses, for personal expert businesses to e-commerce brands in the middle of the last decade. But for the last 6 years, I've been running a small little boutique agency, stroke consultancy really, with a handful of clients that I've been helping personally to grow their business, develop leads and demand, and build automation and sales pipeline, with using LinkedIn as the primary platform for acquisition. So during the lockdown in 2020, it was like many people, I was bored, didn't know what to do. So I jumped on Twitter at that time, started tweeting about some of the stuff I've been doing for the couple of years before then. And there was already a cold email wizard. Shout out to Daniel Fazio for that. So LinkedIn King seemed like a bit of a joke idea to kind of just run with on Twitter, and it stuck. So I'm there on Twitter as LinkedIn_King, and yeah, I know quite a bit about LinkedIn as I've been doing it. I've been providing a commercial service for 6 years now, not just last week or last year, but 6 years. Again, it's a long time. So do know quite a bit about the platform, and I'm happy to share as many secrets as I can in the time we've got today.
Yeah, and I know I told you off air. I'm going to say it again. A year ago when we started up a new part of our firm, I stumbled across your guides, and I've told you this off air, and I'll tell it to everybody. It was gold, like so much gold that I've had those two guides up on my 36 tabs of Google Chrome. They've never come off of there. I've always used them as reference points. So it is not an overstatement to say you are LinkedIn king. I've been in digital marketing since probably 2009, 2010. But I can tell you the value in those things is unbelievable. So everyone here is in good hands. Can't wait to learn more. Joe, why don't we kick it over to you?
Yes, I'm Joe Milnes. I'm the founder of the direct sales company. I've been involved in sales, B2B sales, for over 20 years now. And for the last 6 to 8 of those have been predominantly focused on building sales teams from scratch, building out sales processes, creating training content, training salespeople to become effective, efficient machines. I've spoken to James a few times over the last 2 to 3 years. We connected on Twitter when he was the LinkedIn king. And one of the things I'm really interested in is hearing about the current trends, because I've probably known James for like 2-3 years. And the thing that amazes me is that he's always bang on trend. It will be how to use automation, or how to use loopholes that you can connect with more people, or how to utilize groups, or how to utilize LinkedIn events to generate traffic. And one of the things that we're all looking for as salespeople is more traffic, more prospects who fit our ICP, who talk to us, and we've got that space to explore what they're looking to do, what their challenges are, what the priorities are, so we can get them to a point where if it makes sense, we can position our product or service as a means to helping them achieve their goals. So being able to predictably generate those conversations on a regular basis is critical for any business, any sales team. So LinkedIn is one of the main channels at the moment, along with cold email, cold calling, which I'm also a big fan of. So being able to master and utilize each of those big three, either as separate entities or together in an omni-channel approach, is going to put you way ahead of your competition, when most teams just focus really heavily on one channel because that's what they feel comfortable with.
Yeah, and I was just going to kind of joke that you can't have the sales without leads. Everything starts with kind of on the demand side of the of the funnel, right? So you got to fill the top of the funnel before you can even worry about fixing sales processes. And James, you've taught me a lot just in your content that I've absorbed. Let's talk through some of the different ways, and loopholes is a great. That's what I term it, even with our clients when we're using them. I'm like, this is the loophole. No one really knows about this, right? So James, tell us a little about some of the loopholes that you've kind of found and utilize in order to, to do cold outreach on LinkedIn. And just one more thing on that, there's a lot of people out there who will say, doesn't work, right? It's probably the same way, Joe, that people say, hey, cold outreach doesn't work on email, cold outreach, right? It's all dead, right?
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you it's not dead. So James, why don't you walk us through kind of some of the different, whether you want to call them loopholes or different methods of using LinkedIn and some best practices in terms of using it for lead generation.
100% happy to, Terry. So this show is from connection to close, right? So we'll start with the initiation of kind of outbound communication, and I think I want to actually make sure that the paradigm is shifted for many people on this call immediately, because although we're calling it from connection to close, most people still believe that the first contact with somebody on LinkedIn needs to be a connection request. And while connection requests are super valuable and they're a bedrock of LinkedIn demand generation campaign, they are not necessarily, and they are absolutely definitely not the only way that we should be initiating contacts with completely cold prospects that have never heard from us before. So the first thing I say is connections are good, but as most people are aware, LinkedIn has done a good job since 2022, or back end of it, of starting to limit how many connection requests could be sent out. Because there were times in 2022, particularly, where it was the Wild West. You could upload CSV files of people and you could send 1,000 connection requests a week, and many times more than that. Now, clearly, that was unsustainable for the platform. It's just too great a volume for the experience to be good for everyone. So since then, LinkedIn has introduced restrictions, and most people are aware of those. They do vary, but they're anywhere between 100 to 150 connection requests, typically more close to 100 per week, especially for connection requests with a custom message. So most people these days think, well, we can only send 100 connection requests a week on LinkedIn. Is that really enough? Is that enough? Should I bother? Should I just stick to cold outreach where I can generate, I can register 100 domains and I could be spamming the entire universe and feel comfortable with that, that's a superior strategy. And so the first paradigm shift for everybody listening on this call is that life doesn't begin and end with connection requests when you are contacting people on LinkedIn. So let me give you two secret, still pretty much unknown strategies, blue ocean opportunities for people if you are looking to reach out to qualified targeted prospects on LinkedIn without having to send connection requests. So let me be crystal clear. We can still send a whole bunch of connection requests, and there's different ways that we can do that, and I'll come back to connection requests in more detail. But in addition to connection requests, these two additional strategies that really few people understand are very, very powerful and getting my clients a lot of results, are that we can send direct messages to people without connecting with them first. And that's kind of like a cold email, if you like. So it's cold email, but on LinkedIn. And the two types of messages that we can send to people are, number one, an open in-mail. So most people are familiar with in-mail. They associate in-mail, you pay for credits and you can send people an in-mail, but you have very limited number of credits even with a Sales Navigator subscription. It's about 150 a month. However, if someone on LinkedIn is a premium member on LinkedIn and they choose to they toggle an option which turns their profile into an open profile. That means that they choose to accept messages from other premium members on LinkedIn. A premium means somebody that pays a subscription, like Sales Navigator. So they opt in to receive unsolicited messages from other premium members without a connection request being necessary. So that's called an open in-mail message. That is the type of message number one. So you can, and I do this with my clients, I share our value proposition, our offer directly in the first message in an open in-mail with people that have open in-mail available. Now we can't, the volume will vary. Sometimes we can send as many as 30, 40, even 50 a day. We'll see that go up and down. That's one of the things that LinkedIn does. But overall, there is a lot of potential. I've sent a lot of open in-mails that's generated a lot of opportunities for my clients. So that's number one.
By the way, that was one of the first loopholes that you had taught me back probably last summer that I utilized heavily. And actually, they started closing some of the restrictions. And I thought I was spamming people. We were sending them. But that was a game changer for our firm and for our clients.
Yeah, we're in a world now where you really want to be using multiple campaign types to get the maximum leverage with LinkedIn. I think this is the big takeaway. So connections are good, and we'll talk more about connections. Email messaging is great, but again, it's not the only campaign. See, people in marketing, people always say to me, James, can you tell me the one thing I need to do that will generate all the leads that I need for my business? And the reality is that there isn't just one way. I mean, Joe's already said the trifecta, the golden three are cold calling, email, and LinkedIn. And you get the best results if you combine all three rather than just specialize on one channel. So we live in a multi-channel world. And even within just the single channel of LinkedIn, there are multiple campaign types that we need to leverage in order to maximize the reach that we can get for pretty much the same investment. Paying to play, a Sales Navigator subscription, a LinkedIn automation tool subscription, right? That's the entry fee to get in this game. That's it. So we want to maximize,
which is pretty low, by the way. When anyone that's used to paid traffic or any other methods, I mean, you're talking about a Sales Navigator of maybe $100 a month, and a tool, right, that could range anywhere from $30 to $100 a month. So you're talking about for a max of, let's call it $200 a month. To be able to have that kind of access is unparalleled.
It was one of the reasons why LinkedIn is such a powerful platform, because it has obviously an enormous base. It has the monopoly of B2B, so professional networking. There is no other platform that comes close, because it's the only one that really specializes in the professional market. And everybody knows the affluence typically of the average LinkedIn user. So, it's this 800-pound gorilla that you just cannot ignore in the B2B world. It's as simple as that. So the audience is there, and having the ability to reach that audience directly without having to deal with spam filters and Google restricting cold messaging is incredibly powerful. So the second of the two ways to send messages without connecting are group messages. So LinkedIn groups are this kind of ugly daughter, we would say, the ugly ginger kid is what we would say.
Let's not offend all let's say ugly son or daughter.
None of us have ginger hair, but that's it's kind of this ugly child. This in that nobody really knows what it is. It as a platform, it sucks. That there's functionality is virtually zero. Like you can't really do anything with it, like in the same way you can with a Facebook group or a school group, or even Twitter has developed tremendously in terms of what you can do with communication in groups and communities. But LinkedIn, groups just exist as what most people think. They're just corners of LinkedIn where you go and spam content. And that's really what most people's experience of LinkedIn groups are. Let's go and post some stuff there. There's a bunch of other people trying to compete you with posting low value nonsense. However, because LinkedIn is enormous, there are lots of good groups. There are lots of groups that are where people are active, they're engaged, and there's the group has high relevance to people. There is a high perceived value of being in that group. You think about it, all kinds of different groups on LinkedIn. And so when you laser focus on really good groups, I'll give you a secret, IT, right? So you're in IT, I have our clients in IT. I'll give you for free a top group to go after, the Enterprise Architecture Network. So there's a group called Enterprise Architecture Network. So what does that tell you? The members of that group are people who are enterprise related, so larger company size. They are network, so technology, network related IT, and so basically they're interested in enterprise related technology. So if that is your market, the people that work there, like cloud experts, IT architects, CTOs, etc., like that is a great group to find people who meet your avatar. Now, if you are a member of that group, and this is critical because today, now 2024, recording this call, you do have to be a member of that group in order to be able to mine information, pull lists from people that are also in that same group, and also to do what we want to do, which is to send a message. So if I'm a member of the Enterprise Architecture Network, I can send a message to anyone else who's also a member of that group, the Enterprise Architecture Network, and I don't have to send a connection request. And here's the thing, they don't have to have an open in-mail profile. They can have a closed profile. They're not open to receiving unsolicited open in-mails, but because we're both members of the same group, I can actually send them a message directly with my value proposition and my icebreaker or whatever it may be. So that opens up those two channels, open in mail. So open in mail, nobody has to be in a group. Groups don't have to be relevant at all. The group messaging, they obviously, you and that person you're sending to has to be member of the same group. But in both cases, we can send 30, 40, 50, 60 messages a day sometimes for each of these campaign types. So there's a huge opportunity to connect, interact with people that are very, very targeted without having to send a connection request first. And that's the number one thing I want people to take away from this if they're considering how to build a LinkedIn outreach strategy today in 2024 and beyond.
Yeah, and that's just to kind of jump in on that as well. When you think about the cold email campaigns that most people are running, even if you're running a really effective campaign and you're sending out 200 to 250 emails a day, then you've got to accept that probably 30% of those aren't going to get to the inbox. Another 20% of those aren't going to get opened. So you're really reducing. Whereas I think the thing about LinkedIn is that it's really specific in its targeting, because you can be so much more targeted in the people and the job titles that you're going after. But then there's a pretty much guarantee that your message is getting to the person where you want it and getting to the point where you want it to delivered, which I think, so even though the scale's smaller than you can say with your massive lead generation campaigns that you'd run with cold email, it's that guaranteed deliverability, which I think is so powerful, especially when you're stacking the different campaign types on top of each other.
Yeah, I think the other part of it is that the response rate is better and it's higher. And I think some of it as there's some credibility from the platform itself, but there's the ability that when someone sends you a message, you can quickly go look at their background and their company and get an idea, where a cold email, it's kind of hard, right? You're kind of like doing copying their name, doing a Google search or whatnot. So there's that instant ability to look up that person who's sending you the email and saying, okay, is this someone that I want to even talk with? Do you find that, James? I just out of curiosity, and maybe Joe too, we found it on our side that the response rates are higher on LinkedIn, much higher, 2 or 3x in some cases than they are in cold email.
100%, you nailed it. So it's not a volume play. So you kind of have to make up for it with volume or super laser targeting in cold email, because you don't have any credibility to be able to, or the only credibility you have with cold email is literally the text of the email or images or whatever you send through. With LinkedIn, you have all of the credibility of your profile, because people will check out your profile. Even if they don't respond to your message, they're gonna check you out. Who is this person that sent me a message? Whether it's a group message, an in-mail, or a connection request, you're checking them out. I don't care who you are. It's human nature. And so your LinkedIn profile page is, I've used this term, it's one of the most valuable landing pages that you will have in your entire business. So a properly optimized LinkedIn profile is a powerful vehicle for positioning you as an expert in the market that you serve, so that when you do send a message to somebody, they are going to be influenced by that expert position. This person, if I go and look at Joe, your profile, Terry, I go and look at your profile. I see you both are clearly experts in what you do. So now you send me a message. I'm now pre-framed. That is kind of clouding that's influencing my perception of everything that you send to me. And I'm going to be more positively engaged towards you because I can see that you're clearly experts. Contrast that with cold email when people don't know you from Adam. And how do you build expert positioning? It's much harder when you only have words to use rather than a landing page with all the multimodal elements that we can now have on it.
Okay, so we've got the open in-mail messages. We have the messages to fellow group members, right? That you're in, which I did. I went in, by the way. Sorry, I was distracted. I went in and added myself. Yeah, I know. Listen, I said James drops gold every time, and as soon as he said that, I'm like, and I had not been a part of that group, so thank you for that, James. You've already made this worthwhile for me. So those are two. Are there any others or any other aspects, or maybe even go into detail, James, on the landing page side in terms of what is important?
So I did a 60-minute masterclass called LinkedIn Profile Optimization. And that was back end of 2022 that I published that, I think. I'm thinking now, 21, 22, I think it was 22. And 90+% of it is still just as relevant today as it was then. So virtually all of it's just as relevant. So if you go to YouTube, type in LinkedIn Profile Optimization, you will see me ranking for probably around third or fourth for that 60-minute masterclass. Had about nearly 25,000 views in that time. Tons of positive feedback. I really could have charged for it. Packed a lot of actionable micro steps in there for anybody to look at and take action to optimize their LinkedIn profile. So I recommend anybody, that's the place to start. Totally for free on my YouTube channel. You can find that video. It's a big topic, optimizing your profile, no doubt. But I think the key takeaway for this call is just that you do want to make sure you have an optimized profile, because that will just help you get better results for every single thing that you do subsequently.
Maybe talk a little bit about that, right? So when you talk about an optimized profile, right, and especially anyone that's been in marketing in terms of knows, landing pages, the important thing is the first, 2 to 3 seconds, much like on a cold call, the first 2 to 3 seconds, right? So we've got up top on that, what do you call it? Basically the background banner. Is that where you'd start? And the reason I'm saying this, James, is I don't want people to think, oh, well, Terence and Joe and James, they've got, a wealth of expertise in this business, but maybe someone that's, starting up or relatively new, right, in their business journey, I don't want them to discourage them from the fact that they can still make them. That's what marketing is all about. They can still make themselves look bigger than they are, right? So if they're starting from scratch, would they start with their LinkedIn banner, kind of that first part there, and then maybe walk through some important parts of building that landing page banner or landing page profile?
Right. So the first thing is claiming your expert positioning. It's like, how do you want people to understand who you are and what you do? That really is positioning, in how you want to position yourself. And so in my case, I'm making it clear to people by using figures that are unique to me, that I have achieved, significant outcomes on LinkedIn specifically. So I'll reference the amount of opportunities that I've generated, the value of them, the deals that have been closed. So I'm sharing some specific credibility in that statement, so that really only I can say that. What you want to avoid is saying anything that thousands of other people could say the exact same thing. So that would be my number one tip, is make sure that you position yourself as unique. So Joe, you do a great job of this. I mean, we're talking about, from connection to close here, the secrets to generating 70 million in sales. Well, 70 million in sales is a great outcome. It's a highly desirable outcome. It shows that, you've helped achieve, significant numbers for your clients over the years and directly. And therefore, your stuff. Not everybody can claim that they've helped close 70 million in sales, right? So you want to, when you have that credibility, you want to make sure that comes across crystal clear upfront as soon as possible. Now, if you don't have that credibility, then there are other things that we need to do. So let's just say you're starting out, you're listening to this call and you're brand new. James, Terry, Joe, how do I build my credibility if I'm just, new in the game? Well, then I would focus more on your avatar. Who do you help? What problems do you help them solve? So make your banner, your profile, and your headline all about your client, all about them. What problems do you have that you can solve? I used to use the formula all the time. If I could help you do X, would you be interested? So if I could help you generate 15 to 20 qualified leads on LinkedIn every single month without ads, would you be interested? That used to be my LinkedIn headline when I didn't have maybe the credibility, the proof, the background, the track record that I have now that I can lean on. So getting started, I focused on, if I could give you this outcome, would you be interested? And if that's an outcome that is desirable and valuable to your market, then when you reach out to people, I used to get messages back to people just saying, yes, tell me more. Because literally the value proposition was so clear, so transparent just from my profile that they didn't really need any other selling in order to respond positively as a lead.
Let's see. Actually, I got one question real quick from Owen, who's watching, and it's a good one. And that is, hang on here. What are the best tips? And I'm going to preface this. So Owen's question is, what are the best tips for building a targeted list for direct outreach campaigns using Sales Navigator? Which, as you know, anyone that's used it knows it's a little like just the rest of LinkedIn. It's a little cumbersome, right? It's kind of like they have two different, search methods. One, you can search individuals, and the other is companies. It's like, why can't you just give me the same filters to do both, right? So maybe James, if you can, and Joe too, if you've got, I know you've done this on your side as well. And we'll get into the sales part here. But James, maybe you can kind of talk a little bit about the targeting and how is the best way to build the list inside of Sales Navigator.
So certainly. So a couple of key tips I'll give you for Sales Nav lists. So it depends on the size of the target, the market you're looking to reach out to. If it's a bigger, broader market, then I'm going to give you two specific suggestions. If it's a smaller, more micro-segmented audience, then you're going to have fewer options in terms of you're just going to really target in on job titles. And one of the best ways to focus on job titles is use keywords. People think, and here's the secret, people think that you need to use exact match job titles only when you're filtering for people's job titles. It's not true. You can just use keywords. So we'll stick with IT, the word cloud. We can just have cloud as a keyword in the job titles. That could be cloud architect, it could be cloud consultant, cloud developer, it could be all kinds of things. Frankly, if they are cloud related and that's my target market, I don't really care. I want everybody. So just using cloud as a keyword in the job title will produce a greater list of still very likely highly qualified prospects compared to just putting cloud architect or cloud consultant in there, which is going to be more specific and therefore more limiting. So that's my first tip if you're going after a more restricted audience. But if you're going after a bigger audience, then here's what I suggest you do. There are two filters that you absolutely want to use as primary filters. So let's say you've got a big audience. Let's define a big audience, more than 100,000 people, right? So how do we boil that down to the most likely to respond prospects from that 100,000 plus list? Well, the number one criteria would be, have they posted recently on LinkedIn? So it's under the spotlight section and it's recently posted on LinkedIn. That just means that they are more active because they've posted. They at least are active on the platform, and therefore they're more likely to see your message because at least they're going to be logging into their LinkedIn regularly, so they'll see your message, which gives them a higher chance of responding. Because here's the secret. If people don't log into their LinkedIn, how are they going to be able to respond to your connection request or your open email message or your group? They're not. So we are looking to target people that are more active on the platform. Otherwise, response rates will be much lower. Okay, so that's tip number one. Make sure that people have posted recently on LinkedIn. Tip number two goes back to groups. Look for people that meet the avatar, but that are members of relevant groups. Because I can tell you, people that are in groups, they are more open to networking. They are more open to responding and giving consideration to your offer, accepting connection requests, accepting emails, accepting group messages, or everything being equal. They are far more responsive than people that are not members of groups. This is a huge secret. So take that 100,000 list and see, well, what relevant groups are they in and that I can also be in? And then I can just target those people. I don't have to only send them a group message. I can send them a connection request And actually, if I send them a connection request, I say, hey, we're both members of the same group. Would be awesome to connect. So your icebreaker in the connection message is written for you, because relevancy trumps personalization. That's another lesson we can talk a little bit about. So those are 3 ways to build searches. One is to use keywords in the job title. The other 2 were posted in the last 30 days, posted recently on LinkedIn. And then also look for people in your avatar that are members of relevant groups, because they are much more likely to respond positively compared to people that are not in groups.
So I've used all 3 of those, and I learned them from you. When we first started targeting, we were targeting IT consulting firms, and so we in the keywords we put IT consulting, right, or IT consultant, right, and that actually got us more qualified data in terms of the right targets than it would is if we had left that out and then try to go by title and company. The other is that, and I didn't realize the importance of this, posting in the last 30 days. I was like, what does that really matter? But to your point, right, if they're not on the platform, and because those connection requests are so valuable in terms of how many you can send out a week, if you send out 100 and 50 are people that aren't on the platform, well, you've just essentially kind of wasted 50, connection requests. You might as well send those 100 to 100 people that are active on the platform. Again, that was something I didn't quite connect. I got it from you. The third one I'm still working on, which I'm going to pick your brain more on that after we're done here today. But the groups is really powerful in terms of, I always like to call it, that's where the people are hiding, right? If that's where your ICP is hiding, right, your ideal client prospects, then go over there and get active. All right, so let's do this. Let's flip over, Joe.
I'm gonna not contribute a huge amount to this LinkedIn section, but as you can tell already. But 2 things that we found really useful, especially if you're contacting enterprise organizations, is the filters regarding department headcount and department headcount growth or decline. So we obviously sell sales services for sales teams. Now, what I'm looking for there is sales teams where there's significant change. So I can put sales department and then plus or minus headcount growth of 20 or 30% in the last year. Because whatever direction that change is, if it's going up, then there's going to be growing pains, there's going to be headcount, they're going to be flying the plane and trying to fix it at the same time. Similarly, if it's going down, then there's going to be constraints, it's going to be drive for efficiency, wanting to do more with less, etc. If you're selling education technology or something, then assessing the size of the learning and development or the HR department, key indicators, again, looking for change in those big departments. So if you're like in a SaaS world and you're looking for to contact those enterprise organizations, definitely play around with the filters on the company filter, account filters for department headcount. What you can do then is you can save those companies into a list. Unfortunately, it's one of my frustrations. You can only do 25 at a time, but you get really high quality account-based lists, and then you can put those lists and search for your job titles within those lists. A really good approach for like ABM and super targeted account management tactics.
Yeah, and I think that's the key. Go back to it. We'll kind of keep going back to that. This was a quality play, right? So where there are artificial restrictions that LinkedIn has in place, don't let that deter you, because the quality of both the people that you're able to target and the response rate is going to make more than make up for it. So, and I think all of us would agree, to that. I guess one more thing I want to ask in terms of the change, because change is good, right? Change up, change down, it doesn't matter. Change is good because change brings in, different people or different thoughts, right? Different internally, an organization can start saying, well, hey, we have to do more with less, or hey, we're scaling and growing, right? So we need to look at different, types of options. What about, isn't there a setting too, and I'll probably ask both of you this, but James, you'll probably know, where you can find where a person has changed job title or changed a company within a certain period of time?
Yes, there's a spotlight for recently changed position. I think it's the last 90 days. So that's another way that you can sometimes reach out to people and then you use that as an icebreaker. It could be an internal move. It's not necessarily an external move. That's what you need to bear in mind. But I think the other thing I'd add is that both for people that have posted recently or had a recent job move, if you are in that ABM mindset where you've got a very small but a very high potential value market that you're reaching out to, you might really, and especially if you have an SDR team as well, you really might want to personalize the outreach fully and actually not necessarily even use automation, or maybe use automation for some invitations to events or to groups or other lead magnets. But I think there's a great opportunity to customize that message. If you go and see, okay, so this person's changed job, well, let me go and just do 30 seconds of research on their profile and see what position they've changed. I can reference that in the icebreaker message, if it's a connection request or an email, and now that person knows that I bothered to do my research, compared to the 99.9% of messages they receive where there's no research done, it's untargeted and poorly worded. So you're going to stick out very positively just because you've done that one extra step of personalizing the message. Now, most owners and founders don't have the bandwidth to do that. But if you're an SDR, that's what you should be doing all day long, is a certain amount of highly personalized outreach, especially in an ABM scenario where quality matters, not just spray and pray. So yeah, and also posted in the last 30 days inside Sales Navigator, you can actually see a link to the people that have posted and what they posted. So you can click on it, you can see what they posted. So here's another super secret ninja tip. Again, it works really well if you're an ABM SDR team in an enterprise setting, which maybe many of the people listening, I think it'll be split. There'll be some founders that are kind of solopreneurs. But
I was just gonna say, by the way, so like SDR is a sales development representative, and ABM.
ABM is account-based marketing. So when you're really targeting a very small, finite group of companies or people within those companies. So it's a much smaller base of people to reach out to. Which again, it is normally
smaller TAM, smaller total addressable market.
Absolutely, absolutely right. Absolutely right. So this is a killer. So go and look for your list of people that have posted in the last 30 days. Mm-hmm. But rather than just send them a connection request with a generic message, go and post a comment on their post. Find that, because Sales Navigator will give you the link to it, so you can go and see it. You can post an intelligent comment on there. It doesn't have to be the world's best comment, but just something. Then in your connection request, what are you going to say, Terry?
Hey, that was a great post you had on X, Y, or Z, whatever the subject matter is.
Yeah.
The funny part is just like you said, you make a comment on their post, they get a notification saying that, Terence Branley, liked and commented on your post. So now you've got multiple hit points in this person that no longer are you cold or some, nobody.
Exactly. So you can say, listen, I saw your post about X. I dropped a comment. We thought it'd be cool to connect, right? Something like that, right? Now, how easy is it to ignore somebody that's liked and commented on one of your posts, sent you a relevant connection request that relates to that activity? It's very hard to ignore.
To your point, at that point, you've already set yourself apart from 99.9% of the people.
And the reality is most SDRs are not willing to do this work. Let me tell you, my experience. However, that doesn't mean to say they should. Those that do, the 1%ers, they are doing this all day long.
Yeah, I think one of the big problems now, when you look at and there is a lot of noise in traffic for both LinkedIn and certainly cold email now. And I think that the first step you have to get over on both of those is, can I get my prospect to actually pay attention to what message I'm trying to bring them? Because it doesn't matter how valuable the content is after that, whether you're the best person at what you do on the planet, whether you've got the most ridiculous lead magnet that no one in that persona would want to refuse. If you can't get them to pay attention to the message and put yourself apart from the noise, you're never going to get it. And I think that's where combining the approaches, you'll probably have to spend, you have to send, say, 100 emails to get 2 positive responses. But if you send 100 emails and you add on top a connection request with a like and a comment and something else, then you'll probably only have to send 50 emails. If you leave a voicemail saying, no need to respond to this, I've just sent you an email, the subject was the name of the comment that they've made or the reference of the post, and you've messaged them on LinkedIn, it's very, very hard to get ignored. You still have to have a relevant message. They still have to want what you're offering, and you still have to have some value to offer them after that point. But you can put yourself ahead of like 85, 90% of the people
easily
out there doing it, probably more, just by stacking on those and focusing on who you really want to target, and then doing everything that you can to make sure that like you're creative with the way that you're getting your message across to them.
Yeah, and I think, we talked about this is great for, small total addressable markets, right? And if you have a finite group, if you have a total addressable market of, I don't know, a couple hundred or even less than 1,000, right? Becomes imperative, right? Because you can't spray and pray. You spray and pray to those 1,000 and you're done. You're like, okay, great. Now what do I do, right? So This is where it becomes very imperative in terms of that type of strategy. But the great part about it is that even if you don't have a small total addressable market, if you have a larger, you can still employ the same methodology, right? And just basically use that in your targeting to get the right people that you want to try and talk to.
And if you do have a larger total addressable market, then you can the automated messaging through in-mails and group messages and connection requests. Again, if you choose the people that are more active, and you have a relevant message that is somewhat unusual and stand out, and I'll give you an example of one if you like, if you twist my arm.
Yep.
Then I send out automated campaigns that are to bigger total addressable markets, and I get good response rates because of the relevancy and the fact that the message is different from the vast majority of messages that they are receiving from the rest of the world. Joe's exactly right. You need to be aware about what their inboxes look like. Now, in terms of LinkedIn, people are not getting the same volume that they used to get, certainly a couple of years ago. So the inboxes are a little bit cleaner, a little bit leaner, but email is a disaster. Email is just a torrent. It's a flood of people asking for 15 minutes of your time, like before giving any value. And to the point where now it's horrendous. Like you really have to work hard to get my attention on cold email, because I'm going to start off with this suspicion level that's like 99%. And you're going to really have to fight to get my attention. It's so much harder this year. I just don't care. Because there's so much bad emails, so much irrelevant. Even if you have good product service, I don't care. It's not enough to stand out with me anymore. You're gonna have to work harder to get my attention. Exactly what Joe said. So let me circle back to my promise. So here, what's one offer you can make to people that is different from the vast majority of messages that people do receive, and you can automate, so you can send to large addressable markets as well as small addressable markets, and you can get tremendous results from. Well, I'll give you an example, because one of my clients, we've been targeting IT directors. And so there was a response I saw recently from an IT director of a mid-sized bank in the US. These people are hit up all day long by absolutely everybody. And the response that this IT director gave to my client in his message was, this is the only time I've engaged with a message that has followed on from a connection request, like in ages. I can't remember the last time I've ever done that, but this message resonated with me and I'm interested. Okay. So you probably now want to know what was that message.
I'm wondering if you're going to tell us.
You know what? I shouldn't, but I will. So no, I'm kidding. The reality is, the message that we sent to that IT director was an invitation to join my client's LinkedIn group. So they connected, and incidentally, the connection request, there wasn't a custom message. It was just a connection request without a custom message, and it got accepted. The follow-up was, thanks for connecting. But recently, I've started a group called X. I'm not going to give away everything here, and I thought you might be interested. A couple of maybe one or two sentences about the group in terms of a value proposition for the group, who it's for, and the kind of things that will be included in the group. and then an invitation to come and join the group. And he responded positively and said yes. And he also said that this was the only time he's responded in like months, for a very long time. So the lesson is, what was the offer that stood out in that busy bank IT director's inbox and kind of compelled him to respond? It was an offer. It was an invitation to just to join a LinkedIn group. But that LinkedIn group was relevant to him, and it had high perceived value. So the LinkedIn group was optimized specifically for the market it is looking to serve. And that was let me ask both of you, how many invitations do you get via LinkedIn or cold email to join groups as the first icebreaker message? I can tell you now, big fat zero.
Yeah, maybe one or two.
Maybe one or two in a year at most. So that is an example of a message that is different, because most people are just saying, here's a video, or here's a lead magnet, or can I get in your calendar? Again, there's a million other people saying the exact same thing. But if you're actually offering people to join a group, and that group is relevant, groups are synonymous with value, because people love to congregate. Birds of a feather flock together. So if that group is relevant and has high perceived value, it's optimized, much like a LinkedIn profile, then there's a very high likelihood they'll give consideration to it. And that's why one of the reasons I'm a big fan of groups, because it's a fantastic icebreaker. Here's another lesson. I actually reached out to brand owners, e-commerce brand owners, the most hit upon market in the entire universe, the worst to go after. I would never recommend anybody goes after that market if you have any sanity at all. Okay. But I sent about 3,000 cold emails to brand directors, and this is in the UK, inviting them to join a LinkedIn group. And we got about a 1% positive response from a cold email. That was it. So we got hundreds of brand either owners or employees at brands that came to join this group, all about e-commerce, and so that was just from a complete cold email, and that's crazy. And it's just because the offer is so different from what they are normally being bombarded with in e-com, especially bombarded with everybody trying to sell them everything. So,
yeah, and the benefit too, obviously, in the group, right, is that now is your kind of captive audience that you can kind of facilitate the conversations and deliver more value. But I'll go back to it. Relevance and value are the two biggest things if you're going to go out to a cold market that you have to concentrate on. If you do those, even if you even do them halfway decent, you have a much better chance than probably 80% of the people out there, right? And relevance is like, hey, is this a message that's relevant to my target, to the ICP, to the person that I'm sending it to, right? Am I, sending to the plumber in Pakistan something that should be sent to a VP of IT, right? That doesn't make sense, right? So, making sure that the message is relevant to that person and to that firm. And then what sort of value proposition is it, right? And a value proposition isn't, hey, James, this is what we do, right? That's not a value proposition. Value proposition is, hey, here's something of value, before I try and even sell you anything, right? It's to me, it's always about trying to get to the next yes, right? Give more value, get to that next yes, to hopefully to where you get to the point to what I think, and I want to ask you guys, the most important part is getting into that first conversation, right? Offline conversation, right? To where you're getting it to where you're talking to someone like we are today. And I guess I'd ask you guys that. Maybe let's take that to the connection. What was it? Where were we going? Connection to
close.
Thank you. So let's start moving along there, Joe. Let's bring you in.
Yeah. I think James is absolutely right. Like if anyone in sales has to remember one thing, it's that a prospect will only ever go to the next stage of your sales process if it's in their own self-interest. So they're only going to get on the call. If you say, I'd love to chat, they're not going to get on the call because that's about you. It's not about them. They will only ever get to the next stage if they believe it's of benefit. No one is bothered about serving a salesperson's self-interest. So having something of value to build your credibility and offer that value is essential. And so James has mentioned a group. People associate groups with value, relevant content, but there's other things that you can do to do that. We're building an arsenal of lead magnets across our stuff and our clients. And when we're talking about lead magnets, you want something that the prospect actually wants. It's no good giving them a crap lead magnet because it doesn't interest them. So it's to the point where you feel like James's video on YouTube, which I've forwarded to many people, like it has to feel like you could charge for it. So
Yes.
frameworks that you've used, step-by-step guides that solve one of the smaller problems that you solve for your clients that are looking. Really specific, relevant case studies, which are a very good match for the companies that you are selling to, that are long form and go into detail, specific detail about the transformation you've delivered. That's another one that you can build out. And one of the reasons that if you aren't collecting long form case studies for successful customer engagements, you are missing out on an absolute gold mine, both to get a better understanding of your target market and also to lower the buying resistance and increase the credibility that you have or your organization has. So I think certainly in, like James just said, using groups, but you should be developing and putting energy into building an arsenal full of valuable assets, sales assets that you can use to get prospects on to the next stage. You can use them to nurture them, to make sure that they're showing up to calls. You can use them to build the credibility of success of whatever your product or service is offering. But I think be conscious of that, because it's such an important link between, if a prospect hasn't got anything to go on, and that's why the LinkedIn profile becomes so important. If you've booked a call via cold email or cold call, they will, if they've booked a call with you, they will check you out on LinkedIn. And you want content there which will position you as an expert, or if not, if you're not an expert, show transformation that your company has done for clients. Have valuable content which shows what you're doing for clients and how you like talking about it, because as much of that as you can get exposed to as a prospect, it steadily builds the credibility and perceived likelihood of success of engaging with you. And I think on that point, you should always be positioning to get them onto a call with, and it should be positioned in their mind. So if you've sent a case study, a positioning to follow up on that should be something, look, just seeing a bit more about what you do. I sent you this case study, but if you're not dead against it, I can talk you through exactly how that same process would apply to company name. So we're giving you some value, and then we're saying, okay, we'll give you a bit more and we'll talk to you about it. On that call, of course, you're going to talk about what they're looking to achieve, problems, aspirations, goals, motivation to change. But it's about getting them on that call in the first place for their benefit, not for yours. They don't care. They really don't care about you, your product, your landing page, how good your website is, whether you're a leading provider of whatever widget it is. They don't care. The only thing they care about is getting something of value that will serve their self-interest and make life easier for them. So have a think about what sales assets you can collate. Most people in sales teams, larger teams, don't really engage with marketing. There's a big disconnect. Speak to marketing, see what content you've got, case studies, like testimonials, frameworks, anything like that is really valuable, and use that to position that next step. So like if you're in a group synonymous with value, then your message to people who've joined that group to get value would be like something along the lines of, look, saw you join this group, wanted to find out a little bit more about you. We're in the same group. I presume we're sharing the same interests. Any objections to a quick chat or something about like that? If you sent a case study, talk about that. If you if you sent a framework or some value-based assets, then make sure that you're positioning it as something that you're going to spend time to show them how that can apply to them. So that middle stage is the hardest thing to get over, because once you've got space with a prospect and they've set aside time in their diary, that's when you've got the opportunity to find out and start to influence and see if it's a good fit or not. But the biggest step is taking them from that, okay, we're kind of in this group together, or okay, we've sent you a case study, what now? That's the biggest step, is being able to get them and lower the tension and the resistance to get them onto that call.
Yeah, that's incredible. James, what kind of, when you talk about like that offer, right? It's that value forward offer, like kind of Joe's talking about, right? Whether it's to review a case study or go over something that's worked for one of their clients that could work for them. What are some other examples of, offers or that offer creation process that can help, someone get from that middle ground, like Joe talks about it?
We haven't really talked about events, but actually events are probably even easier to leverage than compared to groups on LinkedIn. So credit, it's like, this is a great event. You've created an event. You've got more than 230 people that have registered. Mm-hmm. We sent thousands of invitations to our collective networks, mm-hmm. and we've got a pretty good response from that, right? Mm-hmm. So this is a lot of people that have seen, this invitation to this event. And so running an event once a month is really no big deal anymore. It shouldn't be. It should be a part of every company's mix of content. And LinkedIn gives you tremendous tools specifically to invite up to 1,000 people per week per profile to an event. So there's one client, I managed 5 profiles for them, and we did an event for them last month. And we did 22 days of promoting. From 5 different profiles, we sent about 15,000 invitations in about just over 3 weeks. And, and we got hundreds of people responding to that. And actually it was for an in-person event. So not a webinar. So not expecting masses of responses, but the quality of responses was great. And there are lots of leads now for the SDR team to their icebreakers to follow up with them and engage further. So it was a tremendous exercise in generating demand, generating leads just from one event, but being able to invite all of their connective networks that we've built up over time on LinkedIn. So huge fan of events. People love events. You can cold message people about events. Nobody minds being invited to an event if it's relevant, if it has perceived value, if there are experts speaking. As the first initiation of a communication, it's a great asset to have. So that's events and groups go hand in hand, and everybody should be leveraging certainly events on LinkedIn.
If you, I'm just going to share this just because I think if you wanted a case study, James, the first LinkedIn event me and Terry's laughing because he knows what's coming. The first LinkedIn me and Terry did, we did. I think we pretty much forgot about the part where you have to drive traffic to an event.
Right. As marketers and lead gen guys, like, hey, we forgot about that part.
I think we had 4 attendees. One of them was Terence's business partner. Right. One of them was my friend. And I think we only kind of started talking about this and talking to you a week ago. And then 5 days later, we've got an event and there's over 230 people registered. So you don't have to tell it, like, it was a mixture of delight when I spoke to you and also kicking myself really hard under the table because realizing what a missed opportunity this is. But absolutely, it's going to form part of our strategy going forward, and 100%. With proper lead up time as well to make sure that you've got the opportunity to drive traffic.
And Joe, I sent you a screenshot. How long did it take you to invite 1,000 people from your connections to this event?
3 minutes. That was incredible.
I don't want to say it's embarrassing.
It was embarrassing. It was embarrassing how simple it was. And again, it's just another one of those LinkedIn loopholes that you've introduced to where it's super simple. It's not. It's amazing.
I mean, I have my VAs do it for my clients, as you can imagine, because it's so simple and straightforward that anybody can do that. Even those 5 minutes, you don't need to do it yourself, right? Have a VA do it. So it's, but the power of being able to send 1,000 invitations. So just to be clear, you can send 1,000 per week. So if you've got 5,000 connections, Terry, 10,000, you say actually.
Yeah, like 10,000. And I did notice that too, because I have a couple of events and I said, I wonder if this will work if I go into my other event, because I've already sent it for this event that we're doing today. And I looked at the other event and I was like, I can send 1,000 for that event too. This is crazy.
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Yeah. It's the one area where you can do huge volume completely with LinkedIn's blessing. And so why are we not all using it?
It's to your point, for anyone that's built up a network over time, which a lot of our folks have, a lot of in the IT firm related and consulting related space have big networks and very valuable networks. It would be crazy not to do an event monthly, just for the fact that you can leverage that to have an opportunity to get in front of your targeted prospects that you built up in this network to be able to deliver value. But just once a month for 1 hour, I mean, you'd have to be able to generate, I mean, a significant amount of demand from that. It's incredible. It's incredibly powerful.
And I know people. Oh, sorry, Joe. Go. Sorry. Go.
No. I was going to say and the thing is as well, like, because the big thing about registering for an event, even if you don't get the live attendees that are the registering, those people have put their hand up to attend event about a problem that you are professing to solve for those people, and there's an opportunity there to develop. So you've got infinite opportunities to build on that event and nurture those prospects because they put the hand up for something relevant.
I'll give you a script. I was going to say the same thing, Joe. No surprise.
Right.
So I know somebody who's crushing it with again, it's a webinar, right? LinkedIn events. Let's say it's an online event. It's basically a webinar, but we're using LinkedIn's event platform and invitations to promote it, drive traffic to it for free. By the way, just in case we haven't made that clear, there's no ad cost here. This is just organic. But you could the SDR should reach out to that person. Oh, I saw you were registered for our event in a couple of weeks. I don't know if you'll be able to make it live, but if you like, if you've got 20 minutes, I'm happy to walk you through what we'll talk about, in one-on-one, and we could do that Monday 2 or Tuesday at 10 next week. Which would you prefer? It's like, so smart SDRs don't wait for the webinar, right, to jump on the lead and give them an opportunity to walk through what you're going to talk about, but do it beforehand. And so that's an opportunity to get them on a one-on-one call, now build a relationship and not run the risk that maybe they don't show up for the event, because a lot of people register for events, but they're not all going to show, obviously, because they're busy. So it's an icebreaker. It's a perfect excuse to reach out as an SDR and develop that relationship further.
Yeah,
this is my sorry.
No, go ahead, Joe.
I say I've got my sales head on now. The brilliant question to add into that script there and that approach is, look, one, what piqued your curiosity about the event and its title? Yeah. Brilliant, because then you're automatically getting an insight into what their challenges are. 2, we're giving attendees the opportunity to shape some of the content. What particular would you like to find out about? So you're getting 2 golden bits of information there for free for people who've already put the hand up. So the fact that they put the hand up makes it very hard not to want to kind of input into that. And you've got great information from that.
We've started tacking on a kind of a mini offer to the back of some of the like that, what you were just talking about, Joe, right? So if someone signed up for an event, right, and you either call them or message them, on the tail of this, this offer of, hey, you know what we're doing, for anyone that's, signed up for our event, we're doing an audit, a growth audit, right, for, their IT firm, and it's completely free. It'll take probably 15 minutes, right? And again, just some type of way to tack on another value-added offer to someone to your point, Joe, has already raised their hand and said, yes, that's me. I'm your ICP. I'm interested in what you're obviously putting out there, and just give them another opportunity to move forward in the process with you on a value forward approach.
I will say one other thing to this, which is that many people, especially in IT, have very, very poorly, I'll be generous, very poorly defined offers. Let me be generous. Some of them absolutely just don't have an offer at all. And that's more common than it is not in IT, especially.
100%. We spend most of our time on that. I totally agree with you, Gene. We spend most of our time with our clients in doing that.
So the strategy that I've used with the group, so I was just actually looking at the numbers. So we've actually, from the groups, from my clients' groups, we've actually offered 5,326 people a call after they have joined my client's group. By the way, there's a big difference. If they join your group, you have all the status delta. So it's much easier for people to say yes, because if you invite them on a call after they've joined your group, it's not just someone else's group that you're happen to reach out to. So very powerful. But from those 5,326 people we've offered on a call, 1,219 agreed to a call. So 22.9%.
20%? Yeah.
22.9% call agreed to call offered ratio. And from that point, 643 of those 1,219 have been booked. So that's a 52% booking rate, of which 78% over 500 have been held. And of those 503 held, 246 have become sales qualified leads and moved to the sales pipeline. So these people said yes to a call, not in response to an offer of I can do X for your business, necessarily, right? They were not responding to, I've got a case study where we've done X for Y. Would you like me to show you how? Which is that's the ideal super qualified phone call. But what these are discovery calls. They're pre-discovery calls. They are networking calls. It's like, let's just get to know each other. You can see what we do. And equally, we know what you do. You've joined our group. You're interested in this topic. Let's just get on a call. So for companies that don't have a well-defined offer or value proposition, or they're trying to find product or service market fit, being able to jump on a pre-discovery call, a good old-fashioned networking call, and just getting to know people, and then getting to ask questions. Well, what's important for you right now? What's a priority? What's not? If you could wave a magic wand and wish for one, then what would that be and why? You know, to Dan Sullivan, right? Still one of the best questions you could ever ask in sales. That now they're gonna tell you what their issues and challenges are. Now you can try and fit your products and services specifically to their pain points and goals and aspirations that they've told you on this discovery call. And it doesn't feel like a sales call. If it makes sense, book a follow-on, then book a proper discovery call and do a bit more of a deep dive into their problems, and with the right appropriate team members in an enterprise scenario. So this pre-discovery call, Terry and Joe, has been a game changer for my clients, because they've booked hundreds of calls with people that wouldn't have agreed to a call because frankly their value proposition sucks. But now they've had a chance to refine that, so they have a much better value proposition because they've had all these hundreds of phone calls.
That's what I was going to say. That product market fit that you can get from those calls alone. We've experienced the exact same thing with clients, to where what they think they're going to market with and what the market is telling us are two completely different things. And I'm like, hey, don't just, it's not the end of the world here. They're telling us what they want. So all we have to do is go back and construct an offer based on what they just told us.
Yeah, and that's really the key for most people, is that you want to be market-led, not product-led. And it's super 100%. Difficult for virtually every company in the world. It's very hard. Everybody's obsessed with their product or their solution. How do we sell more of our product or solution? Well, why not go to the market and see what people are willing to invest money in? Then let's see whether you can engineer a solution with the teams that you've got available. And you don't have to guess, because they're telling you that they're willing to invest in that. Just can we actually get our heads out of our backsides, push our egos to one side and say, well, let's start from scratch. Let's see if we can build a solution with zero preconceptions and just actually serve the customer. And it's shocking how few companies do that. But if you do that, it is impossible to fail, impossible to not generate clients and revenue, because you are listening to your people and they're telling you what they want. You're building trust with them because you're already on a phone call. So now you have a relationship. You just have to put together a good solution for them that's attractive to them. If you can do that, anybody and everybody will win in the sales business.
Yeah, agree. Yeah. Okay, guys. Well, let's. Any closing thoughts before this has been great, and the only thing I'm going to ask is that we do this again, because that way I can keep getting gold nuggets from James. That's probably the only way I'll get my free consulting from him, so to speak. So, but any closing thoughts before we wrap up here?
I think from me, in case you've forgotten, like with the groups, anything like that, if a prospect puts a hand up to either enter a group which is relevant to the problem that you solve, or attend an event which is relevant to the problem that you solve, they are in there for nothing other than their self-interest. So it's likely that problem that your product or service solves is probably near the top of the mind for that prospect. So it's critical to remember that if ever you're on a call discussing a specific area which is related to your product or service, there's a reason the prospects are on that call. So however you can get them to that point, as long as it's relevant and they're open to hearing what you have to say, you're in a pretty good position. And that's why James has been able to get the results he has for his clients on not a direct sales message, but getting into a networking first, because the group or the event is the anchor for which that prospect is thinking there might be something in it for me.
James? So obviously we focused a lot on the initial outreach and getting engagement on this call. I think thinking of a part two, I'd love to hear Joe talk more about what I know he's an expert in, right? Which is how to produce compelling offers. When you have a service or a value proposition, how do you craft a a way to communicate the value of that product or service. So let's just assume that we know that it's relevant to the people we're pitching to. So we've gone through this process, that we know that there's a fit, but how do you convey the value of your software, your service, your solution to these people? Because I promise you, very few people in the world, like 0.1%, have a clue how to do that well. Joe does. I've learned a ton from him. What I've learned from Joe, I'm using with my clients privately right now. So I think, if we do a follow-up, we should focus on that a lot more, because that's a super important part. Because once you've got leads, frankly, I've got a lot of clients that are swimming in leads I've generated for them. But their main problem is what Joe can help them with. It's sales.
Always.
I think we should dedicate most of the rest of, if we do a part 2, specifically to sales, because it's so damn critical. Most people get it wrong, and Joe knows it as well as anybody I've seen in the industry.
Yeah, and I think we just kind of scratched on it at the end, right? I think it's comprised of that offer kind of creation, or different offers creation, combined with that sales process. And I will absolutely love to do the part 2. So as long as you guys both promise to both come back for it, we'll get that on calendar, and we'll start sending 1,000 messages every week.
More than 4 days notice, maybe. Well, this time we'll do it properly.
Well, good. Well, James, I know you've got your X handle there, LinkedIn King. So is that the best place to follow you? Obviously there and here on LinkedIn.
It is. I also have a jameswatson.com is my personal brand website. So I link to my LinkedIn profiles and Twitter from there. So that's where you'll find me. Great. Joe?
Yeah, easiest just to find me at Joe Milnes on LinkedIn. That's where I'm most active. LinkedIn.com/in/Joe Milnes TDSC for the direct sales company. So that's where.
Awesome. You guys are both awesome. I appreciate it. I'm grateful to have done this, and we will look forward to part 2 coming here in probably the next several weeks. So have a great day. Have a great week, guys. And thank you again for participating in this.
You're welcome. Thanks for being invited.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Thanks, Terry. Thanks, James.